Okay, it's recording.
We're going to get started.
Yeah, like also if you have a short question.
Alright, so this is Introduction to Hardware. I'm Jay.
I'm Julian.
I'm Ethan. I'm Cole. Yeah, Cole's helping out, and we're in FTC Kickoff. So here's an outline of kind of what we're going to go into this presentation. We're doing this 5-person goals. We're going to go over the engineering design process, and we're going to talk about some vendors. So we have Tetrix and GoBuilda, and then we're going to look at their starter kits and kind of analyze, compare them. And then we're going to talk about fabrication, ownership risk, manipulated lists, all that good stuff, ratios, and driver chains, and all that good stuff.
So what is hardware? Well, if you want to get this definition of hardware, it's like designing, prototyping, creating, and improving a functional robot. But if you want to understand what it means, it's like the physical characteristic of a bot, the design process of the bot, and the repairing of the bot.
So goals of hardware. So in your robot, you're gonna want your robot in competition to be reliable. So you don't want to be breaking consistently. It's fine for breaks once in a while because that happens. But you don't want to be consistently breaking. So you want to be able to rely on it. You want to be efficient. So whatever the game is, you want to do the task. You want to score a lot of points quickly rather than be slow and incredibly robust. And you also want the robot to be compact. So you want to store a lot of complex parts in a certain 18 by 18 rule. So you want to store a lot of complex stuff in that regard. It's very compact. And when you're adding something to your robot, it should improve at least one of those three things. Otherwise, it's going to be redundant. So whenever you're thinking of adding an additional thing, make sure it's either improves the reliability, the effectiveness, or the compactness.
A big way that at Vandergrift we determine if a new addition to the robot is actually useful is something called value added. So just if we add something to the robot, how many points is it actually increasing the robot? And that's a very practical way concerning the game of how you can determine if you should put a new addition to your robot.
So when you brainstorm ideas for a challenge, you want to analyze the game, you want to develop certain strategies on scoring strategies. You want to discuss and draw the ideas you have, and then you want to report on so you know what the CAD or the best decisions the team's made.
So back to what Julian said, so analyzing, so that's when you're going to want to, because the game just came out today, so that's when you want to go with your team, look, figure out what you have to do, your main tasks, the scoring goals and stuff, and then based off of the game, you're going to look at what can score you the most points, what's the most key important thing. So, and then off of that, you're going to discuss your ideas, what can we build to maximize your scoring potential, and you're going to draw ideas with your team, and then the agreed on design is going to be what you're going to record down and move forward with.
Now, for the design process, this is really important when you're making a robot, because when you define a problem, which will most likely be the game, you want to know when you research your problem, you want to find out about all the specifications and know all the rules about it, so you know how you can combat that solution.
practicing in scrimmages, the other teams host, because that's important, because you don't want to go into like a league meet blind, so to speak. I mean, league one's okay, but after that, you're going to want to move forward and test more and more things before you go to the second league meets. And that could also just be testing their on-game pieces individually. So last year, my team, we plugged in our new manipulator we made to a battery, and we just like tested on game pieces to make sure it worked. And we ran through that a couple times before we found one before we perfected, like we refined our manipulator. And the evaluation and presentation of your solution. So the evaluation is going to be competing in the meets, so like you can see how your robot does and performs. And then the presentation, that's your judging. That's like you're gonna show the judges everything you've done to get your product, the process you went through, and that's the presentation.
Usually the design process is going to be a lot more small scope. So it'll be like looking at your defining problem can just be something as simple as I need to raise up this high. And then you can be a lot more effective by going through the entire design process for that one specific problem. That's the way you can make more reliable, more efficient manipulators for specifically modularity problems.
So Rev, that is one of the vendors you can purchase parts from. They make these little extrusions right here, and what they allows you to do, it allows you to slide screws into the channels here to attach stuff onto. And one big difference between Rev and a lot of the other vendors is that they use hex-shaped axles instead of D-shaped axles.
Cool thing about Revs, they're customizable. You can put, unlike Tetrix or GoBuilder, the ones that have those like pre-cut holes, these have no pre-cut holes. It's more like a continuous kind of place where you can put a screw, nut, or anything you need to mount.
Yeah, and they're easy to drill through. So this is Rev's like FTC starter kit. It's one of the more recent ones on their website. They do have some new stuff, but this is like their main one. So this one's $600, but they do offer a bunch of discounts for registered FTC teams and the rookie teams. So you get all this good stuff. You get 2 motors, a bunch of extrusions, and channels and stuff, and it's $1,300. So just keep that in mind when we're going to show you the other starter kits too for the other vendors. Tetrix. So Tetrix, they use D-shaft axles, and they have a bunch of pre-cut, like predetermined C-channels. Oh, C-channels. These are D-shaft axles. So they use a bunch of pre-cut holes in them, so you don't have as much versatility compared to Rev. And they become like pre-sized. I guess you can cut them down and lose some of the functionality levels of them. But yeah, so that's Tetrix. But then their starter kit. This is their FTC competition set. So it's like $100 more than the Rev one. There's not like any discounts for it. And you get all these here. You do get some cool wheels. And it's 8 plus pieces. Less pieces than one.
We have GoBuilder. And GoBuilder's their channels are similar to Tetrix, but they have more pre-cut holes in them, and they have a really good starter kit. I'm going to show us that. So this is their master FTC kit, and so it's $650, where $500 for FTC teams, and it's over 2,000 pieces here.
We just had a GoBuilder drivetrain there for a second. I think it's gone now, but they're selling like a smaller version of it. It's like a movement thing, and you can apply and get it for like $100, and it's only 500%. So it's like a really good value. So I would recommend GoBuilder out of the 3.
Don't feel like you have to buy the starter kits also. So you can kind of just buy parts as you need them. It might be a little bit more expensive, but
it's good for starting out.
Yeah.
Also, you should not be afraid to mix and match different builds to any of the build vendors, because they are all mainly compatible.
Yeah.
So, the fabrication, it allows you to make unique parts. And there's 2 main types of fabrication. You have 3D printing, which allows you to make much more customizable parts, which are less durable. But CNC parts allows you to make flat 2D parts, like cut out. If you look at the white robot right over there, the side panels are very cut out with the triangles and whatnot.
trial and error through prints, or you can just focus really on the CAD and trying to like work out the calculations before you print. So,
Yeah, CAD is a big part of fabrication. Design, and then don't really probably fully motor into. Yeah, not a problem. Motors and servos. Motors are what you're going to use for more like physically intensive tasks. So on my drivetrain, I'm going to use motors to power that instead of servos. So if something requires like more work, right, I'm going to try to use a motor over a servo because they're more powerful. Servos are just basically smaller motors. You can buy them. You can buy motors that rotate in a limited amount of space. So like ones that rotate like 170 degrees or something like that. But you can also buy continuous servos. The Rev Smart Servo, for example, can run both ways. You can run it at like at constant power, and then it'll just keep rotating. But you can also program it between two like set angles if you want to. Servos are good for like little gate systems in your robot. So if I have like an intake, right, and I'm running my intake, and I don't want whatever I'm picking up to go to the next stage of my robot yet, I can have like a little gate powered by a servo, just like blocking it in place until I want to go. Then I can raise up my gate with the servo, and I'm good.
avoid putting a whole lot of load on servos. They burn out a lot easier and a lot faster than most motors, and they're not necessarily cheap to replace. So yeah, just be careful about your implementation.
Can you go back, Wes? Vex, they also make motors, but they are considered servos, so they're not as powerful as the other motors that you can get, but they require a separate power module to use them.
Also, all of these motors, you guys run the advanced hardware. All of these motors you can put on customized gearboxes if you need like a specific torque level or specific speed for your motor. Also, I've worked with X motors before. They're really cool to customize, and they have really good balance between speed and torque at high speed levels and low speed levels.
So manipulators. So manipulators is basically a core component of your robot. It's going to vary depending on the game. So your manipulator essentially is the mechanism that is going to interact with the game pieces. Whether it be like a collection system or like a lift or whatever, or not lift, a collection system. So they vary from game to game. These two robots, they're from the same like game. They're both from Rover Ruckus. So this is the manipulator one where it has an intake, and then the game piece is going to come all the way up into this collection system and lift up. And then there's normally like a little gate here, and then the game piece comes out.
On this robot here, it's on a lift and allows you to dump all the objects from inside out.
Yeah.
There are usually like two approaches to manipulators, either like a module design, where you're going to have a bunch of specialized manipulators for specialized tasks, or you can go for one kind of overpowered manipulator that can do all of those tasks. That'll usually save space, but it's usually going to be more complicated to design. Generally just going to be more heavy, and it's going to kind of define your robot. Your robot's going to be like defined by that one manipulator. Sometimes more efficient.
So lifts, depending on the game for the year, your robot may or may not need a lift, and sometimes you have to put a manipulator on a lift. This year, you most likely need a lift for the challenge.
So here's the problem with this.
So what is basically what is a manipulator?
Manipulators can be anything that interacts with game pieces or like the game in general. So like a claw, any hand, intakes. Usually anything that's just interacting with the game pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, I got another question.
Yeah.
So what would be the best way to for something to grab other game piece? Like obviously it's kind of hard to get a claw underneath an object. How would you do it so it can grab it? Is there like a special material you can put on the side that will grip it?
So yeah, it usually depends on the material. So like this year, the Lego-looking bricks that are in the game, they are a very smooth, kind of frictionless plastic. You can use, let's see, like lot of friction between those two types of materials. If you are concerned about friction, you can also use suction cups to clear the flat surface of something. And then also you can have like you know how claw machines kind of completely encircle an object? You can do that so that you don't have to rely on like two pressure pads holding the thing in place. You can just kind of completely cover the object and pick it up.
I got also another question. So, Tim, will you be able to email this to us?
Yep. All of the presentations are recorded, and we'll also email you guys the PowerPoints.
Here's a linear slide of this. So apparently, like Rev also offers this. So they're very light. So they don't add a lot to your. They don't add a lot of weight to your robot. So they're very efficient in that sense. And you can string them in different ways. So depending on how you want to put it, which makes them a lot more customizable. And it's probably one of the most common like those systems in FTC. I'm pretty sure those digital robots are using more settings.
Request. So I think the best part about these lifts is that you can make the bars however big or small you want, and that adds a lot of customization on it, and it allows you to be more flexible in your designs.
Also, the vendors, a lot of them have their own types of lift systems. They're usually going to be a lot more clean, and they don't really require as much like of you to put them together. They're going to. We use. It starts with an M. What are they called? Slides.
Mizumi slides.
Mizumi. Those are light drawer slides. They're lighter. They have less friction, but they are really expensive. So you might want to go back a slide. So that is just normal Rev extrusion pieces, and then Rev also sells linear motion kits, which are those black pieces you see. They basically fit into the C channels of the Rev bars, and that's what allows you to like space them out and create movement lift systems. But yeah, if you can go for like a drawer slide or the Rev pre-made slides that they just came out with, those are usually going to be more reliable and just like less finicky in general. They're not going to break as often.
There's like a really bad picture of the drawer slide lift. They're kind of heavy, so like they're gonna wobble at higher heights. So I don't know if you want to.
So, does anyone really use them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people use them.
Especially these lifts are really good if your robot has to like lift itself up and do like a pull-up or something.
Yeah, they're usually a lot faster too.
So, how does the linear side? How do you make this drawer sides move?
You either have to like custom make some sort of insert in between the slides to rig up like pulleys, or you can like there's a way of drilling screws into actual drawer slides and then putting pulleys on it.
Yeah, if y'all want to come up here after the presentation, what this team did is they put polycarb kind of separators between each slide, and then on the inside, actually, what's it? Yeah, at the bottom. Yeah, so you can use that to like make sure that each slide is kind of separate and uniform, and then they put the pulleys down here to kind of avoid any like chance of this coming off.
So, how does this make it go up to? I want to know how to make it go up when the pulleys are over here.
Sure, we can completely walk through each of these robots afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, so they tend to wobble at higher heights, so I don't think I'd use it for this game. So next slide.
So gear ratios, these are very simple. Let's say a large gear is being powered by a small gear. You're not going to get as much speed, but you're going to get much more pushing power or torque. But if you have a big gear powering a smaller gear, you're going to get a lot less torque but a lot more speed. And if you just think about it, it's very simple, because if you turn the big gear once, it's going to turn a small gear much more times than if you turn a small gear once, it's going to turn the big gear much less times. And the same idea goes for sprockets as well.
Okay, so now we're gonna go through like the three main wheels in STC. So it's gonna be stealth, omni, and Victim. So we have a stealth wheel. So there it is. You just hold it up for a second. That's a stealth wheel. So that's like your average wheel you got. A lot of drivetrains that have like maybe like one or two. But normally your whole drivetrain would be stealth wheels.
A whole lot of traction against foam materials like the bottom
this potentially be used as a way to grab some of the materials?
Depends on the material. If like relic recovery, you know how those blocks for foam, stealth wheels would have a lot of traction against those types of blocks, but something that's like plastic, that's like, if you notice, it can kind of roll across the table kind of well, with not a lot of friction, and if you're looking to pick up something, you need more friction. So you might want to look for like compliant wheels, or I don't know, there are a whole bunch of wheels out there, so just be kind of mindful of the material whenever you're picking out your wheels. But yeah, usually those are for drivetrains.
So these are Omni wheels, and what it is one big main wheel with these little wheels on the side that allows the wheel to turn easier. So it allows it to go drift from side to side. And this allows for turning to be much easier.
So usually what would happen is you would have stealth wheel on the back and 2 Omni wheels on the front.
Usually it's 2 Omni wheels on the front and back and a stealth in the middle.
It depends on
It really depends on the game.
It depends on what you want your center of turning to be.
Yeah.
Look right here, so this allows the center of turning to be right in the center.
That's also common.
But if you're on the other bot, you see the Omni wheels are on one side, so the center of turning is more further back on the back of the robot.
I remember the reason that they put 2 stealth wheels and 1 Omni wheel on this pod was to get over the crater in Rover Ruckus. That required a lot of traction and a lot of like forward force. Mechanum wheels, Mechanum on plastic is usually not great. They'll just kind of spin and nothing will happen. So yeah, like I said, just be mindful of your materials.
So Mechanum wheels, we used to have a little drivetrain there. So basically, it's a wheel and it has a bunch of little 45-degree rollers on it. So this allows for really easy strafing from side to side movement. It allows for very precise movement of your robot, which is going to be important for this year's meeting.
If you need to move in a grid, Mechanum wheels are good. They can make you move on X and Y axis very easily.
They're
You can move sideways without turning.
And you can also move, and you can move diagonally. So they're pretty good.
So we're going to go over different drivetrains, and each drivetrain has their own pros and cons, and you can use a different drivetrain depending on what game it is. So here we have an H drive. What it is 5 Omnis, and this configuration allows you to go from side to side and up and down as well. But there's almost no traction on this bot, and you can push around easily.
So same way as Mechanum drive, it's kind of pushed a little easier than normal, but you can get very clean and sharp turning and strafing with your movements.
There's
What?
Sorry, I just want to say I think that the stealth wheel in the middle and the 2 Omni wheels is kind of important. So maybe you take a picture of it and put it on the PowerPoint.
Yep. I think there's like a configuration, it's called like West Coast, where it's like the middle stealth wheel is like, it's either raised or off. It's dropped, okay, so it's like lower.
For Mechanum drivetrains, make sure you look up a diagram of Mechanum drivetrains first, so you know like which way to orient the treads. If you have them oriented incorrectly, you can have, it's possible that your wheels will be fighting each other, and that's really bad. You can burn out motors like that. So yeah, it's a little counterintuitive the way you're supposed to orient them. You should probably just look it up. There's also another orientation where they're not just like in line like that, but each of them are turned. How would you explain that? Like,
So if you're gonna look at it,
Yeah.
you see how each of these Mechanum, they have this, the rollers are going out. Sometimes they have them going in to make an X in the center.
yeah,
Right.
like here. You see that wheel? Instead of the wheels being like this, you can turn each of the wheels to be like that. For Mechanum drivetrains, that allows for easier, like direct XY straightening.
So we have a Smurf drive here. This allows you to spin each wheel independently, so you can go straight from side to side really, really fast. It has a pretty good amount of traction, but it uses up a lot of motors, and it is very complicated to build with.
It's also really heavy.
So tank is kind of like a drivetrain. It's also like a configuration on the controller. So these are very cheap, easy to design and drive. So when you're driving them on the controller, it's basically just like 4 to
expansion hub and distributes all power to all components on the bot. There's also a modern robotic distribution module, which is much more complicated and bulky than the Rev one.
Is that Tetris?
It's modern. And then you also have two bones. You have one on the robot. What it does is it's wired to one of the Rev expansion hubs, and it takes input from the other bone, which is hooked up to a joystick, and it tells the expansion hub what to do, and it does it. And then there's also a battery on the bot, obviously, and it powers both expansion hubs.
The Tetrix and Rev batteries are pretty much interchangeable. Usually Rev is a little bit more reliable.
They're pretty easier.
Yeah, they're skinnier and they look local.
Okay,
Any
so
questions?
y'all have any questions?
I noticed that with most robots, let's say it usually has a forward, backward, and then a side to side. Is there any way to make it go diagonal?
Yeah. That's usually a software problem. You're not a software like issue. We were talking about with Vectum drivetrains. If you want to move diagonally, you can program that in.
Normally, when you're programming with like Vectum or something like that, what a lot of people do is they use one joystick to translate, meaning like if I only use one joystick and I go forwards, it'll move forwards. If I move that one joystick sideways, it'll translate or strafe sideways. Same thing side to side, and then the other one will be used for training. So if I move like along the x-axis of the other joystick, then it would rotate. People normally do.
Yeah. You can also look that up. It's a little complicated to explain in words. It'll probably be easier to just like figure it out by reading it.
So do you need to build those programs from scratch, or you get modules?
I think there are some modules out there probably. If there aren't by the specific vendors, I'm sure that other teams have probably made YouTube videos about it before, or they've uploaded it to like
You can also
GitHub.
find like libraries on GitHub and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, also done it before.
Really useful trick is to just read through libraries and see which ones